Hello everyone, and welcome to the Keto YouTube channel. This is where we will look at sporting events from a statistical perspective, using pieces of data to determine what makes teams successful or not. This is the very first video, and ahead of the next season in the National Hockey League, I thought that now would be the time to talk about a team whose statistics varied greatly by category over the last year, the Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings were one of the most interesting teams of the 2023-24 National Hockey League season, taking an intense Eastern Conference wildcard race down to the very last minutes. We will look at all 278 goals scored by the team last season under Steve Yzerman's management and Derek Lalonde's coaching. Then through that and other pieces of data, we will discuss the main factors behind the team's success and what needs to improve. Lastly, we will look at what next season or future seasons for the Red Wings hold by also evaluating the top prospects in their academy system. Before we begin going through the numbers, we will go through the 13 pieces of criteria included in a spreadsheet I completed last week, the data of which will be mentioned during this video and the next one as well. The 6 necessary categories are simply for reference: the game number of the Red Wings season, the team they faced, whether they were playing on home, away, or neutral ice, the only neutral case being the NHL Global Series in Sweden in November, whether the goal they scored was to take the lead, to hold it, to tie the game, or still behind, the goal scorer, and the opposing goaltender. The period in which the goal was scored and time of the goal are also included for reference. The next category in the spreadsheet is the area of the ice in which the goal was scored. The locations within the attacking zone are shown in this image. Usually when the term low slot is used, it refers to the central area in front of the net, but for simplicity, instead of using the words closer and further away when referring to the Wings, I wrote low slot left and low slot right. The same goes for high slot to make the data easier to follow in terms of the shot or deflection's proximity to the goal. For shots that were deflected, where the stick was placed on the deflection was calculated as opposed to the initial shot, since the deflection was the last tap of the puck before it went over the line. The area of the net is another category divided into 6 sections: top left, top center, top right, bottom left, bottom center, and bottom right. This is followed by the type of shot. The data for this category primarily taken from the National Hockey League's databases, with a few revisions. For example, Dylan Larkin's second goal against Los Angeles in the 13th of January game was not between the legs, but was instead a wrist shot in front. All of this said, we can now go right into the categories and some of the important findings. First, who did the Red Wings score against the most? Of the nearly 300 goals they scored this season, 17 were against the Montreal Canadiens through 4 games. That is a full 6.12% of the total. The Red Wings scored 15 goals against the Buffalo Sabres through 4 games, 14 against the Boston Bruins through 4 games, and 14 against the Pittsburgh Penguins through 3 games. Among these 4 teams combined, the Wings scored 21.58% of their goals in the entire season. It should also be mentioned that Montreal, Boston, and Pittsburgh also make the top 3 in terms of teams that scored on Detroit in 2023-24, tied with the Ottawa Senators at 15 goals. Of the Western Conference teams, the team the Red Wings scored against the most was the St. Louis Blues. The Blues conceded 12 goals in just 2 games, 6 of which came in the first period of those matchups. The Calgary Flames and San Jose Sharks follow at 11 and 10 goals, respectively. Of the divisions, the Red Wings scored the most against Atlantic Division teams, 86 times, which is not too surprising considering they played Boston, Buffalo, Florida, Montreal, and Ottawa 4 times over the course of the year. Detroit scored against Metropolitan Division teams 82 times, they scored 63 times against Pacific Division opponents, and 47 times against Central Division opposition. This correlates to the total number of victories by division. Against Atlantic Division opponents, they won 15 games out of the 30 they played, 36.6% of their total victories. 10 wins came against Metropolitan Division opposition through 24 games, 9 against Pacific Division teams through 14 games, and 7 against Central Division squads through 14 games. That makes the record above 500, 643 against Pacific Division teams, exactly 500 against Atlantic and Central Division teams, and below 500 at 417 against Metropolitan Division sides. In terms of home, away, neutral venues, 142 of the goals scored by the Red Wings were at Little Caesars Arena, with 130 at away venues and 6 at Globen and Stockholm. 85 goals scored were to increase the lead, 73 to take the lead, 61 to tie, 45 to bring the team within a certain deficit, and 14 were overtime or shootout winning goals. To put this into perspective, here are the totals by percentage put into a pie chart. Ultimately, the two largest slices of the pie, the goals that increased the lead and the ones that allowed the Wings to take the lead, these combined created a majority at 56.9%. I should note that on the spreadsheet, shootout winning goals are added, even though the NHL does not credit them to any one player officially. They are usually credited to the whole team, hence the total for the season is 278 and not 275. But for reference and to keep consistency with the 278 total, I have assigned the shootout winning goals to the players that scored them. Lucas Raymond's final tally is 31, but he has 33 on the spreadsheet due to his two shootout winning goals against Philadelphia and Los Angeles. Patrick Kane's final tally is 20, but his shootout winning goal against Montreal means that there is one extra goal in the spreadsheet. We will get into the key players, including Raymond and Kane, and their statistics with these goals included in the next video. For right now, we will look at the findings regarding the squad in general. Unsurprisingly, 175 out of the 278, nearly 63% of Detroit's goals in 2023-24 were scored from the low slot. 91 of those were from the central area of the low slot, directly in front, with some pockets of the net open on the left and right sides. Of that tally, 40 were scored thanks to wrist shots. 69 goals were scored from the high slot, but almost half of the high slot goals were taken from the left, with 30 coming from the side. Again, wrist shots were the most common mode of release of the shot, with 29. 22 of the goals were scored directly from the point, without a tip involved. There was quite a balance with regards to the areas of the point, as 9 were scored from the center, 7 from the right point, and 6 from the left. In terms of the mode of release, there was also a balance, with 9 slap shots, 7 wrist shots, and 6 snap shots. 5 goals were scored from behind the net, 3 wrist shots and 2 wraparounds. 7 goals were scored from the neutral zone or from the Red Wings' own end, all of these being empty net goals. 6 of them were wrist shots, and 3 came from Dylan Larkin alone, with Moritz Seider, Alex DeBrincat, David Perron, and Shane Gostisbehere getting 1 each. 80 goals were scored in the bottom left corner, the most in one area of the net, and 28.78% of the total. 64 went in the bottom right corner and 34 directly bottom center. Of the goals scored in the top corners, 49 were top right, 40 top left, and 11 directly top center. Of the modes of release, 123 were wrist shots, 44.2% of the total, 79 were snap shots, 26 were slap shots, 24 were tip-ins, 15 were backhands, 7 deflections, 2 poke shots, and 2 wraparounds. The Red Wings are not a team that is dominant in one sole period, it appears. There was no such thing as a blank period team with their squad in 2023-24. 94 goals came in the third period, accumulating 33.81% of their total goals in the season. They also put 92 in the back of the net in the second and 78 in the first. 11 of the goals were scored in the extra frame and 3 in the shootout. Looking at the other statistics, comparing Detroit to the rest of the league, first off, the goal difference showed that the Red Wings finished 9th best in goals for and 8th worst in goals against at 278 for and 274 against. They finished 23rd in the overall shot count with 2,375, and an average of almost 29 per game. They were not even close to being the best team in that category that missed the playoffs, finishing 8th among that pack. They were, however, 3rd best in the league in shooting percentage at 11.6%, the best of any team that missed the playoffs. Only Tampa Bay and Vancouver, 2 teams that made the first round, finished above them. On the contrary, they were 7th among all teams in shots against, averaging almost 32.5 per game, with 2,657 shots faced in total. Despite finishing with a goal difference of +4, the shot difference was a complete -282, which is 3.44 per game. This highlighted the main problem that the Red Wings had during some of their games, especially during the December window. They were playing too defensive with a team that's not necessarily defensively sound. 3 of the 9 games in which they faced the most shots were in this single month, with 5 others also relatively close to the top of that list. They could not hold on to major leads either, especially 4-goal leads. They almost managed to blow a 4-0 lead against Buffalo, then just 2 days later they actually blew a 4-0 lead against San Jose, a team that had been on the receiving end of quite a few 5-plus goal blowouts leading into that month. 15 days later they took on Philadelphia and almost blew a 5-1 lead there too, before Patrick Kane worked his magic in the shootout and James Reimer stopped all the attempts from John Tortorella's side. They also did not have decent management of situations where they were 4-on-5 during the span, even though they ended up performing better in January, February, and April and finishing 14th out of 32 teams in the season rank. It was costing them dearly, as 5 of the 10 shorthanded goals they conceded were in this single month, 2 of them coming to the Sharks in the aforementioned game. By the end of the season, Detroit was behind half of the Atlantic Division teams in terms of penalty kill percentage, and in the bottom half of the Eastern Conference, 10th. Improving on special teams and keeping the puck out of their zone in 4-on-5 situations would be ideal to improve next year. That is it for the first part of 2 videos covering Detroit's season in 2023-24. Most of the graphs and images shown were created by myself, but the ones that were not are credited to Hockey Reference and the National Hockey League. In the next video, the roles of the top 4 players on the team, plus specific data on Mort's Seider will be discussed. After that, we will take a brief look at the offseason and the academy if there are any players apart from Simon Edvinsson that can be promoted long-term, and when some of the other top prospects could make the jump to the main team or the AHL, at least if they are not there already. If you have any comments about the season or any of the data mentioned in this video, please feel free to leave one down below and I will try and respond as soon as possible. If you found this interesting, give it a like or subscribe to the channel for more videos like these. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.